So, I'm very happy to be here and thank you very much, Laurence, to invite me. So, I will talk about postnatal cerebral maturation. So, first of all, as you see here, at birth, the myelination is on hyper-intensity on T2. I search the mouse here. So on T1, you have an hyper-intensity on T1 at birth, and you see as an adult you have hyper-intensity on T1 in all the white matter. On T2, the myelination is on hypo-intensity. You have here the hypo-intensity of the posterior internal capsule, and you have all the white matter in adults on hypo-intensity in periventricular, juxta, and also in the U fiber. And radiologists can quickly determine whether a child's myelin development is normal, delayed, or abnormal by reviewing a combination between the T1 you have here and the T2 MRI series, and misdiagnosis could be due to unknown pattern of normal brain maturation. So, to resume, at 1 year here on T1 you have an adult myelination. At 4 years on T2 here and FLAIR here you have an adult myelination, and it is very important to know that. So, in details, myelination proceeds from caudal to rostral, proceed from posterior to anterior regions, and proceed from central to peripheral locations. And you have the T1, it's the pre-myelin, and the T2, the myelin organization. So, in details, on T1 in the newborn, you have the cortical spinal tract, here the posterior limb in the internal capsule, and all the perirholandic region. You have also an hyperintensity on T1 for the myelin in the medulla, here, the dorsal pons, and the superior cerebellar peduncles, and you have also the optic tract. At 2 or 4 months, you have all the cerebellum on T1 here, you see here, you have the anterior part of the internal capsule, the splenium of the corpus callosum, and you have also the subcortical white matter here in the frontal region of perirholandic region. So, it is important to know at 1 year, it is as an adult, you see here, all the white matter is on hyperintensity. And you see here, all the U fiber are myelinated. On T2 now, you have in the newborn an hypointensity on T2 for the myelination. Here the dorsal pons, the midbrain, you have the ventral lateral thalamus, and also, as on T1, all the perirholandic region. At 6 months, you have the deep white matter in the cerebellum, the anterior part of the corpus callosum, jejunus. You have the anterior part of the internal capsule, and you have also the frontal and occipital lobe, but not the U fiber. You see here at 12 years, and here on the temporal region, it is not achieved. You see here, the U fiber are not myelinated. It is very important to know that at 2 years on T2, it is not achieved. You have an hypomyelination as an adult as 4 years. For FLAIR images now, it is generally delayed compared to conventional T2 images. You see at 4 months the white matter on hypointensity on FLAIR on the cerebellum, the posterior part of the internal capsule. You have at 5 months the optic tract, and the perirholandic region at 6 months. So you see here the cerebellar hemisphere at 8 months, but you see here at the substentorial level, you have no white matter myelinated. You have just the anterior and the posterior part of the internal capsule. So it is not, in practical, we don't perform FLAIR before 1 year. And it is important, very important to know that. No FLAIR sequences before 1 year. You see here the white matter on the U fiber. They are on hyperintensity. They are not myelinated at about 2 years. So it is finished at 4 years. You see here the temporal pole on T2, and you see here the U fiber on the temporal pole on FLAIR, and now it is finished. Now we have another sequence to know the myelination. It is the arterial spin labeling sequence. It is a new functional MRI sequence at rest, and it is a perfusion MRI sequence without injection. And it allows a quantitative measurement of cerebral blood flow using the proton of intra-arterial water. Results are at the microscopic levels, and the values of the cerebral blood flow reflect the synaptic activity, and it is very important. The protons are labeled at the common carotid level, and perfusion images were acquired 1000 millisecond delay. And you have here a quantification of the cerebral blood flow with no intravenous injection, no need for radiotracer, and it goes 5 minutes. The applications of ASL is epileptic cortical dysplasia, vascular malformations, cerebral tumors, and also in the maturation, and I will show you. I will show you because there is a correlation between the cerebral blood flow, the functional activity, and the myelination. At 5 days, you see here an increase of cerebral blood flow in auditive regions. The baby hears the sounds. At 1 month, you have an increase in Rolandic regions, that is the motor cortex. The babies are moving. And at 6 months, you have an increase of cerebral blood flow in occipital regions, and the baby are seen all over the world. And after, you have an increase of cerebral region to have an adult maturation at 4 years. I will show you a lateral view and a median view day by day, and more is read, more the CBF is increasing in functional region. You see here the Rolandic region, the motor cortex is read, and after you have the visual cortex and the temporal, and after the frontal lobe. So, to resume, you have the CBF increase at 3 months in the sensory motor cortex as the baby is moving, and in the primary visual cortex here in occipital about 5 and 9 months. So, in conclusion, for the first part, an evaluation of myelination should be conducted in each pediatric brain MRI. Both supratentorial and infratentorial white matter should be examined for signal changes of myelination and compare against age-appropriate milestones. And the T2 and T1 and FLAIR-weighted images provide the most important information regarding cerebral myelination. And I repeat, the T1 images are the most useful during the first year. You don't perform FLAIR sequence before 1 year, and the T2 and FLAIR images become superior for continuous surveillance of ongoing myelination. So now I will show you pre- and postnatal cerebral gyration. So, for the cortical genesis, during the cortical histogenesis, the neural and glial stem cells undergo 3 important phases. The first phase is the neurogenesis, the second the migration phase, and the third one is the organization and maturation phase. For the first phase, as said Anne-Elodie, we have a proliferation phase occurs between the 5th and the 20th week of embryonic development, you see here. The second phase is a migration phase, and we have 2 types of migration, the radial and tangential migration. And the second phase occurs between the 7th week and 24 weeks of development. And radial migration leads to the formation of 6 cortical layers following inside-outside migration waves. You see here the formation of the cortex begins with the creation of deep layers inside to end with the superficial layers outside. The third phase is the organization and maturation with the neuronal diversity, and it begins about the 6th weeks of embryonic development and finishes during the postnatal life. At the end of the migration, they are here in their final position, but the brain surface is smooth, as you see here, and the cortical organization is the phase during which all different sulci and gyri of the brain are going to be formed, you see here. So, what is the classification of cortical malformations now? In the first phase of proliferation, we have the group 1, abnormal neuronal and glial proliferation or apoptosis, and you have the microcephaly and the megalencephaly. In the phase 2, abnormal neuronal migration, you have the heterotopia and the ageria, pachygyria, lissencephalia. And in the group 3, we have organization and maturation, and it is abnormal post-migrational development, and you have all the polymicrogyria. So there are a lot of genes in the cortical malformations, and finding the genetic anomalies is very important to assess the recurrence possibility, and we are going to see that in detail. So what are the classification with radiological MRI? It is very important to know what is an ageria or pachygyria, what is a periventricular heterotopia, and what is a polymicrogyria. The key point is providing the most accurate description of the anomalies in order to find genetic anomalies and recurrence possibility, as Anne-Elodie said here. So, first of all, ageria and pachygyria. Lissencephalia refers to a smooth brain, you see here, with absent gyri, ageria, of abnormally wide gyri. Here you have a pachygyria. It is an increase of cortical thickness. Ageria, pachygyria, it is an absent or reduced number of cortical folds, and you see here we have no white matter digitation. It is very important to know that. What is the polymicrogyria? Polymicrogyria are the most common post-migrational abnormalities, and you have numerous, you see here, small sulci with numerous irregularity. And what is the heterotopia? We have two heterotopia. The first of all is laminar or band of heterotopia, double cortex, you see here, form of diffuse heterotopia resulting in heterotopic gray matter. On MRI, a band of heterotopia consists of layer of gray matter, as Anne-Elodie said to you. And we have also another type that is periventricular heterotopia, also called subependymal, and it is nearly contiguous periventricular nodular heterotopia lining the lateral ventricles with normal appearing of the cortex, you see here. Abnormally located normal neurons which never began migration and stayed in subventricular area, whereas the cortical neurons originate. So, this is the gene classification. Which genes should be tested, and I will show you a practical genetic imaging algorithm from MRI to genes. So, first of all, we are going to see the ageria pachygyria. As Anne-Elodie showed you, you see here an ageria in prenatal, and here it is in postnatal, ageria pachygyria. We have two major genes with lissencephaly type 1 and X-Lys doblocortin. You have here the lissencephalia with ageria, you see here, to pachygyria, and you see the abnormalities are important in the posterior part of the brain. When you have the major anomalies in the posterior part of the brain, you should test the gene LIS1. If the pachygyria, as you see here, is important in the anterior part of the brain, the first genes to test is doblocortin X-Lys. We have also two other genes in this spectrum of ageria pachygyria, that is tubulinopathy and dyneinopathy. In tubulinopathy, you have a spectrum, And I will show you some example. You have here an important posterior pachygyria. It is a differential diagnosis to this one. But you see here an agyria, and it is tube A1A. And here another example with a pachygyria, Sylvian pachygyria, with dysmorphic and enlarged basal ganglia, as you see here, very enormous basal ganglia associated with a pachygyria. The first diagnosis is to be 1A. We have also the DNAinopathy. You see here an important posterior pachygyria. Here it is the DIN1. Now the polymicrogyria. So I repeat, the polymicrogyria is numerous, small cell C with numerous, as you see here, irregularity, and you can compare to the other side. So the first question when you have polymicrogyria, is it bilateral and symmetric or not? If it is bilateral and symmetric, you have here polymicrogyria in Sylvian fissures, and you have to test the tubulinopathy to be. You see here the polymicrogyria with dysmorphic and enlarged basal ganglia. You see here it is a tubulinopathy. You have also some DNAinopathy with important polymicrogyria here in the posterior part of the brain. Here in postnatal, you see here in the Sylvian fissure, and here in the posterior part, and also in the anterior part. So when you have bilateral symmetric polymicrogyria, it's a genetic disease, and first of all is tubulinopathy, and you have to know that there is an enlarged and dysmorphic basal ganglia. If the polymicrogyria are asymmetric, as you know here on coronal or axial planes, you have to test the CMV infection. It is very, very important to know that. If it is asymmetric, you have to perform a CT scan to search for calcification, and you could find calcification in about 12% of cases. So to finish, what are the genes in heterotopia? Here you have periventricular, also called subependymal heterotopia, and you see here, very important. Here another example, important heterotopia. The nodule follow gray matter on all sequences, including post-contrast sequences where they do not enhance. And the first gene to test is the filamin A. Majority of periventricular heterotopias result from mutation in filamin A, and it is located in X chromosome with an linked inheritance. Males do not survive embryonic period, and you see here enormous frontal heterotopia, and it is very important to know that if you have small heterotopia, you don't search for filamin A mutation. So to conclude, we have here an algorithm from radiology to genes, and it is very important for the resident to know what is an agyria, what is a pachygyria, to test the two major genes or the tubulinopathy or DIN1. You have to know what is an heterotopia or polymicrogyria, and for the polymicrogyria, if it is asymmetric, you search for calcification on CT scan in order to diagnose a CMV or a fetopathy. So, thank you very much.